Welcome back. We're diving even deeper into those crucial clauses that really protect your business.
Yeah, because like information is power, right? Especially in the
Sure.
business world. So how do we protect our trade secrets?
Yeah.
What about confidentiality and non-disclosure?
Yeah, that's huge. A confidentiality clause really defines what information is considered confidential
Hmm.
and outlines each party's obligation to protect that information,
Makes sense.
especially when you're sharing sensitive data like financial records, customer lists, or even proprietary technology.
So you're establishing those clear boundaries and legal protections around what can and cannot be shared.
Right.
What about intellectual property that feels like a huge one for startups and innovative companies?
It's a minefield, and
Yeah,
getting it right is absolutely essential.
for sure.
An intellectual property clause addresses ownership and usage rights of any IP involved in the agreement.
Okay.
It needs to clearly state who owns any pre-existing IP and how ownership of any newly developed IP will be handled. This can get really complicated, especially when you start talking about licensing and things like that.
Yeah, you got to define who owns what and how it can be used right from the start.
Absolutely. Otherwise, you could be in for a nasty surprise down the road.
Okay, so we've talked about confidentiality, we've talked about IP now. Let's talk about compliance.
Yeah, compliance is key.
We're in a heavily regulated business environment now. You cannot overlook the legal landscape.
You can't.
Staying on the right side of the law is not just good practice. It's essential for survival.
It is.
So what should we be thinking about here?
A solid contract will include a compliance and regulatory requirements section.
Okay.
This ensures both parties are operating within the bounds of all applicable laws, whether it's data privacy, labor laws, environmental regulations, or anything specific to your industry.
Right.
It's not just about ticking those boxes.
It's about showing that you're committed to ethical and responsible business practices.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got all these things in place.
Mm-hmm.
But even with the best laid plans, sometimes things go wrong.
They do.
So how do we protect ourselves from those unforeseen twists and turns?
Well, that's where indemnification and liability clauses come in.
Okay.
These provisions allocate risks, and they protect both parties from potential financial fallout.
So like imagine a scenario where a vendor's software malfunctions and causes damage to your systems.
Right.
A strong indemnification clause would require that vendor to cover those costs.
Exactly.
So it really can be that safety net.
It is.
Now, can you set limits on those liabilities?
You can. It's common to include limitations of liability, which define the maximum amount one party might be responsible for if things really go south.
Right.
This helps you manage risk and avoid those potentially crippling financial burdens.
Okay, that makes sense.
And you might also specify exclusions for certain types of damages, like consequential damages, which can quickly spiral out of control.
Right, right. What about insurance, though? Does that play a role in this whole risk mitigation strategy?
It's essential. The contract should clearly outline each party's insurance requirements, specifying the types of coverage needed and minimum amounts.
Okay.
This ensures adequate financial resources are available if something unexpected happens.
So it's like multiple layers of protection.
Exactly, layers upon layers.
But what happens if, despite everyone's best efforts, the relationship just isn't working?
That's a good question, and that's where termination clauses come into play.
Okay.
A termination clause outlines the conditions under which the contract can be terminated,
Right.
providing a clear exit strategy. This could include breaches of contract, failure to meet performance standards, or even insolvency of one of the parties.
So it's a way to end the relationship if things go sour.
Right, in a clean and legally sound way.
Okay.
You might also include provisions for terminating the contract without cause, sometimes called termination for convenience.
Okay.
But this usually requires a certain amount of advance notice.
So you're not just cutting them off.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got these carefully crafted clauses that outline what happens in these different scenarios. But even with all of that, disagreements can still arise.
Oh, they definitely can.
How do we handle those?
That's where a well-defined dispute resolution process is so crucial.
Yeah.
This section outlines the steps for resolving conflicts fairly and efficiently,
Right.
hopefully avoiding those costly and time-consuming legal battles.
Litigation should always be the last resort, right?
It drains resources, and it can damage relationships.
Exactly. So what does a good dispute resolution process look like?
Typically, you start by specifying which jurisdiction's laws will govern the contract.
Okay.
Then you outline the preferred mechanisms for resolving disputes.
Got it.
This could include mediation, arbitration, generally less adversarial and more cost-effective than going to court.
Right. It's about having that roadmap for addressing disagreements constructively.
Exactly. Ideally, preserving that business relationship.
And if those alternative methods fail,
Right, then the contract should specify the venue and jurisdiction for any legal proceedings just in case.
just in case.
You want to make sure the process is clear and predictable from the start.
This is great. It's amazing how much goes into creating a truly comprehensive and protective contract.
That's a lot.
But I can already see how valuable this is for businesses, especially startups.
It can be a real game changer.
Yeah, navigating those early stages of growth, you need all the help you can get.
Absolutely. It's about setting yourself up for success.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from confidentiality and IP to dispute resolution.
We have.
But let's talk about how all of this actually plays out in the real world.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some examples. How does all of this translate to the real world?
Okay.
What are some stories that you can share that really highlight the impact of these contract clauses?
Sure. So let's start with a scenario that a lot of startup founders, I think, can relate to: rapid growth.
Okay.
So imagine you're a young company developing a cutting-edge software platform, and you outsource a key development component to a third-party firm.
Well,
You're moving quickly, so you use like a generic template. You don't pay much attention to the IP clause.
I'm already sensing this isn't going to end well.
You're right. The software takes off. It's a huge success, but then a dispute arises over who actually owns the intellectual property rights to that crucial component,
Oh, no.
right? And startup ends up in a costly legal battle, draining their resources, slowing down their momentum.
Oof, yeah. That's a tough lesson to learn, but a very valuable one. It highlights, sometimes we overlook those seemingly small details,
Right.
but they can have major consequences.
Absolutely.
Can you give me an example of the opposite, like where getting it right led to a more positive outcome?
Yeah, let's shift gears and let's talk about a manufacturing company securing a large order for a new product.
Okay.
They negotiate a rock-solid contract with their supplier.
Okay.
They pay close attention to delivery terms. Quality standards even include penalties for late deliveries or subpar goods.
So they're not just hoping for the best, they're being proactive.
Exactly, and it pays off.
Okay.
So the supplier encounters an unexpected production delay,
Uh-oh.
right? But the contract provides that clear framework for resolving the issue.
Okay.
Those penalties, they incentivize the supplier to find a solution quickly,
Got it.
minimizing the disruption to the manufacturer's operations.
That's a great example of how a well-structured contract can really be that safety net.
It is.
It's not just a piece of paper.
It gives you those guidelines and those consequences.
Keeps everyone accountable.
Exactly.
Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something that we talked about earlier, the art of negotiation.
Oh, yeah.
What are some key strategies that business leaders, especially those that are new to this process, should keep in mind?
So negotiation, I think, is often seen as a zero-sum game,
Yeah.
but I believe it's really about finding that win-win scenario.
Okay.
First and foremost, preparation is paramount.
Okay.
Know your must-haves, your nice-to-haves, and your walk-away points.
Go in with a clear strategy.
Exactly, and understand your priorities.
What about when you're actually at the negotiating table? What are some things to keep in mind?
Well, building rapport is crucial. Remember, you're aiming for a long-term partnership here, not just a quick transaction.
Right.
Listen, actively understand the other party's perspective, their concerns.
Put yourself in their shoes.
Exactly, and look for those areas of common ground where you can find those mutually beneficial solutions.
So it's that balance of assertiveness, but also collaboration.
Right.
Any other tips that come to mind?
Don't be afraid to make counteroffers, but always justify your position with clear reasoning.
Okay.
This shows that you're negotiating in good faith and you're open to finding that sweet spot.
Right.
And throughout the process, document everything.
Okay.
Keep those detailed records of agreements, concessions, any changes made,
So that paper trail is crucial.
It is for accountability and to prevent those misunderstandings down the line.
And finally, just operate with integrity, right? Avoid those aggressive tactics or deceptive practices
Right.
that could damage your reputation or the relationship.
It's not worth it. A good deal isn't just about the terms on paper. It's about fostering trust and mutual respect.
This has been a really valuable deep dive. I think we've covered so much today, from, those critical clauses to negotiation strategies and real-world case studies.
We really have.
I think our listeners are walking away with a much clearer understanding of how to approach these agreements strategically and protect their business interests.
I hope so.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this. What's one key takeaway you'll apply to your next vendor or supplier negotiation? Think about it until next time. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.